Topping today's news, members of the opposition suspended from the House of Assembly. The Prime Minister concerned about U.S. indictments unfairly tarnishing the country's good reputation. Police forced to shoot a man in Tooth Shop Corner yesterday, and the men arrested in the Ackland's $15 million drug seizure arraigned in court today. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jarino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. In what was yet another historic day in the House of Assembly, when members returned to Parliament following the raucous session last week Wednesday, when the opposition member for St. Barnabas tossed the Speaker's mace out of the window, and 6 of the 7 opposition members were forcibly removed by police officers after locking arms to prevent the member for St. Barnabas being removed. We hear more on today's events in the House of Assembly in this next report by Caitlin Babbs.
Speaker of the House of Assembly Patricia DeVoe began today's session by describing the actions of the opposition members in the last session as a breach of decorum and a lack of respect for the House proceedings when they showed blatant disregard for the authority of the Speaker.
What was most disappointing and unfortunate about what transpired in this chamber last Wednesday was the willingness of members of the opposition to simply breach the rules of procedures and commit offenses under the Powers and Privileges Act. We have come to expect sobriety and a measured tone from the honorable member for St. Barnabas. Unfortunately, he deviated from that standard in the last sitting of this honorable House. What took place in this chamber last week was disgraceful and a blatant display of disrespect for the authority of the chair and the People's Parliament. There was no logical excuse for what took place, and it cannot and will not be ignored.
Madam Speaker went on to explain the House rules in light of what she described as the troubling conduct by the opposition leader Michael Pintard, noting that she operated within the rules when denying him the opportunity to speak at that time of his request in the previous 2 sittings. The Speaker said the integrity of the House must be preserved and that the actions of the member for St. Barnabas and the other opposition members must be met with disciplinary action. She then named the following members.
I now name the following members. The Honorable Michael Pintard, the Honorable Shannon Dawn Cartwright, the Honorable Adrian White, the Honorable Iram Lewis, the Honorable Kwesi Thompson, and the Honorable Adrian Gibson.
The naming is punishment in which the Speaker names MPs and asks the House to pass judgment on their grossly disorderly conduct. Following the naming, the opposition member for St. Anne's, Adrian White, stood on a point of order, but he was rejected. As the Speaker instructed Leader of Government Business, the member for Freetown, Wayne Monroe, to move the motion on the disciplinary action.
I now move, Madam Speaker, in accordance with Rule 88.4, which requires the question to be put forthwith, not of the event, but of the naming, which has just happened, Madam Speaker. I move for the suspension of the named members for 2 sittings of this House commencing today.
And for the press, and I ask for a seconder, and it was seconded by members. And let me say this: the motion is now put. As many members will remain seated. Those opposed will stand.
People will not be silenced, Madam Speaker.
And I thank you, honorable members. It is so moved that for the next 2 sittings, the honorable members mentioned will not be allowed to sit in this honorable assembly. Thank you, honorable members. Have a marvelous day and enjoy your Christmas holidays.
Speaker DeVos said she received words of encouragement, advice, and support from other House speakers in the region. Meanwhile, the opposition members will miss the January 15th sitting and will not be able to return to Parliament until Wednesday, January 22nd. For Jcn News, I'm Caitlin Babb.
Thanks for that report, Caitlin. After members of the opposition were suspended from the House proceedings today, FNM leader Michael Pintard, during a press conference in the opposition room, called for an investigation into the Minister of National Security, Wayne Munro. Munro, who Pintard says is at the helm of the Speaker's decision to suspend the opposition members from the House proceedings for 2 sittings, has received criticism in recent weeks amidst numerous corruption allegations surrounding the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Mr. Pintard says Mr. Munro should be replaced as the National Security Minister as soon as possible.
Secondly, we believe that the Minister of National Security, who again was the lead personnel in this today in our suspension, that he should not sit in the chair he is sitting in. Having served for 3 years, the crime rate in general, but violent crimes leading to death, has increased on his watch. As a former defense attorney, he is conflicted in the performance of his job. And we believe that he is unsuitable. The public believes that he's unsuitable to continue in that job. He has failed in that job.
Meanwhile, Mr. Pintard says the FNM is pleased with the resignation of Clayton Fernando as Commissioner of Police. However, they hope the new Commissioner of Police, Shanta Knowles, will not be swayed by the government's agenda.
And we intend to work closely with the new Commissioner. It would be regrettable if the Prime Minister then puts in place deputies that are loyal to him and to his agenda, or whose names have been called in any other matter. We are watching, and in the event that he proceeds with an appointment that we understand he is considering, we will be back to members of the media in order to share what we know relative to that particular officer.
That was Michael Pintard, leader of the official opposition. While he may support the indictment of the 11 Bahamians by the U.S. Supreme Court for drug smuggling, on Tuesday, while speaking at a national luncheon for pastors in Fox Hill, Prime Minister Philip Davis expressed sentiments that suggest he is not pleased with the way the U.S. has executed that indictment, not informing him on the matter that also alleges corruption in the various Bahamian law enforcement agencies and in government. The Prime Minister, who admitted that he had no prior knowledge of the investigation until the indictment was unsealed, says the way the operation was conducted by the United States could have a negative impact on the country's good reputation. He has discussed the matter with the U.S. Charge d'Affaires, Kimberly Furnish.
I did call the Charge d'Affaires in to speak to about these things, and she explained she didn't know about it herself, but she said it has nothing to do with our relationship. I had the Minister of Foreign Affairs speak to the State Department to tell them what my views are on what they did, and I'm not going to allow this little country that I'm leading to be tarnished unfairly, because there's no doubt that it's tarnishing the Bahamas a bit, and unfairly so.
Again, the indictment alleges Bahamian law enforcement officers colluded with South American drug cartels to smuggle tons of cocaine through the Bahamas into the United States, at least since May of 2021. The now fired Chief Superintendent of Police, Elvis Curtis, who was in charge of the Royal Bahamas Police Force air wing at the airport, and Darren Roca, Chief Petty Officer of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, were arrested in Florida 2 weeks ago, allegedly there in Florida to collect some $1.5 million in payout for their role in the smuggling efforts. Police seeking the public's help in tracking down 28-year-old Basil Monroe of 2nd Street, Coconut Grove. Monroe is wanted for questioning in relation to a recent murder. He is 5 feet 7 inches tall, slim build, with a light brown complexion. If you know of his whereabouts, you are asked to contact CID 502-9991 or 2. You can remain anonymous and call Crime Stoppers in Miami at 328-TIPS, 328-8477. You are also reminded that harboring or assisting a wanted individual evade the police is an offense that can land you in jail. A 16-year-old boy is facing life behind bars for his involvement in a triple shooting resulting in the death of 34-year-old Ronaldo Roll, 44-year-old Kishnell Edgecombe, and the attempted murder of Shanton Lloyd. The teenager is the second suspect to be charged in connection with this incident, which took place on November 30th on Plain Street in Pinewood Gardens. Lavado Dorset, a 36-year-old, is also allegedly responsible for the shooting of the three men and was arrested shortly after the incident. Both suspects were not required to enter a plea and were remanded to Her Majesty's Prison until March 24th, 2025, when they will return to the courts to be served with a voluntary bill of indictment. And police on Abaco are questioning two teenage males, ages 15 and 14, who were taken into custody on Tuesday sometime around 11 a.m. following the seizure of a quantity of ammunition in Murphytown, Abaco. Police investigations continue there. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back following these commercials.